ready for some football. I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to Wildcard Weekend Overtime. We had two games today, doubleheader to kick off Wildcard Weekend. The first was not necessarily a snoozer. It started out really good. It was 17-16 at halftime. We just didn't know that the Seattle Seahawks wouldn't score another point and they would get run out of the building, or they wouldn't score another point until the game was essentially over. It was 41-17. And that ended 41-23 for the San Francisco 49ers. And then the nightcap looked like it was going to also be a thrashing, a sound beating. It was 27-0 at one point in the first half before Jacksonville got what at the time seemed like a meaningless, late first half touchdown to make it 27-7. 5 turnovers in the first half for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Nothing seemed to be able to go right for them. Somehow they were only down 20 points at halftime. And there were a lot of jokes. And trust me, Trevor Lawrence, he heard your jokes, okay? I got to talk about the sequence of emotions going through this game before we actually get to the game. So I'm on socials. Yeah, I'm watching this game, talking to a buddy. My wife is like, yo, this game is over. Turn this mess off. And I'm like, you can't turn anything off, number one. After watching what we watched on a Saturday about 3 weeks ago, roughly, with the Indianapolis Colts and the Minnesota Vikings, you're not allowed to turn anything off, okay? So, obviously, I wasn't going to turn the game off. However, I demoted the game from big screen to little screen. I'm watching the game on the big TV. The little TV was right next to it for emergency purposes. And I decided I felt like playing a game. This game isn't interesting. So put the game on the big TV, took the football game, put it on the small TV. And I was going back and forth watching, playing a game. And I looked down, okay, cute, and kept going, right? So I think the game's over. The person that I was talking to, on the phone, texting back and forth, he did the same thing that I did, demoted the game from the big screen to the, one of the screens adjacent. And he said, shit, I might as well game head it up too. So he started playing the game. So needless to say, we thought this thing was over. I'm on Twitter talking about how, Asante Samuel Jr., does he play for the Jags? Last time I checked, he has the Charger uniform on, right? But someone needs to tell Trevor Lawrence this because he's thrown him 3 passes in the first half, and he's got more completions to him than he does his own team. So someone needs to tell him he's not on his team. And, yep, there was a pass interference that they didn't call in the second interception. Yep, they weren't calling anything. It playoff football. They treated it like it was playoff basketball. They swallowed the whistle. It was letting them go out there and play, essentially. All right. So adjust to it and go out and play ball. Anyway, it seemed over, right? We're making all these jokes. Everyone's making jokes. Ha, ha, ha. Funny, funny, funny. And Ben Standing, I saw a tweet from him that said, hey, I watched the game about roughly 3 weeks ago or so on a Saturday that we thought was over that wasn't. So this game isn't over, just so you know. And this was at 27-0 when he said that. I was like, yeah, this game's over, man. And I tweeted out as much, to be funny, with the old Ice Cube line. I say, well, this game's over. I need something to do. Which court are y'all playing basketball? Some of y'all didn't even get that reference. Y'all just, oh, it's funny. Y'all didn't even get the reference. But anyway, it's 27-7 at half. And I'm like, that was a nice little touchdown before the half. But in my mind, this is what I kept saying. I said the same thing when Indianapolis was playing against Minnesota. There were a lot of opportunities for touchdowns, and the Colts were really, really content with kicking field goals. There was a drive right before the half that I remember very vividly in that game. They could have scored a touchdown, and they were really content with just kicking a field goal. And at the time, when you're up 30-0, you don't really think anything of it. Like, yeah, just kick the field goal. What the hell? They're not coming back. We're up 5 touchdowns, right? Just kick the field goal, go up 33-0. And so in that first half, Jacksonville's defense stood up time after time. That score should have been 40-0 in the first half. 40-0, not 27, 40-0. You get 5 turnovers, and at least 3 of them were in Jacksonville territory. And I'm not talking like Jacksonville 42. We're talking about at the Jacksonville 26 or at the Jacksonville 28 something to that effect. Like, these are, the first pick, they scored a touchdown off of that. But the first pick was like inside the Jacksonville 15, right? And they deposit that into the end zone. But then you get a muff punt. That's inside the Jacksonville, I don't know, 20, maybe 15. I don't remember if they scored a touchdown or not off of that. But there were other turnovers, obviously, that were prime field position that they ended up settling for field goals on. And I thought it was, at the time, like, interesting, not important. I didn't think it was important because they were running Jacksonville out of the building. But I thought it was interesting that they weren't scoring touchdowns. Like, really put these boys away. And I tweeted something out when it was 27-7. I said, if there's a team out there that can blow a 5-turnover, 27-point first half lead, if there's anybody that can squander that in the NFL, it's Brandon Staley and the Los Angeles Chargers. I also said in that same tweet, for what it's worth, I don't think they will. Condo P said, I think the Chargers are going to be okay. I think they're going to be able to handle it tonight. I said, I do as well. I agree. I don't know. As a Commanders fan, I don't find myself saying this very often. Hell, ever. But I do feel very confident in the next statement that I'm about to make. I don't know if there is a worse organization to be a fan of than the Los Angeles Chargers. For heartbreak purposes, not because they're a terrible team, not because, they're a poorly run organization or anything like that. Not like how it is for Washington. I'm just talking about for a team that sets you up with hope and then snatches it away and hands you despair over and over again. I don't know if anybody gets the worst end of the stick like the Chargers do in that department. Clearly, this is as gut-wrenching as it gets in the playoffs. To blow a 27-point lead, miss a field goal late that would essentially put you in the driver's seat, and lose on a walk-off field goal. There isn't a fan base out there that experiences things like this more. Remember how the season ended for the Chargers last year? With Brandon Staley deciding to call a timeout when the Raiders were perfectly content with letting the game be tied and both teams going to the playoffs. And then Brandon Staley decided, no, I want to go for the win. And Rich Bisaccia said, you dirty mother. Okay, that's how you want to play it? Hey, go in the game on these bastards then. Let's go kick the field goal. Let's get this first down. Let's kick the field goal. Let's win this game. And they did, and the Chargers went home. The Chargers under Brandon Staley have lost more games with aggressiveness, with him going for it on fourth down too many times, like he's done against the Chiefs in games. We've seen this movie with them. This is their move. This is what they do. They blow leads. They are over aggressive when they should be a little bit more, conservative. They're conservative when they should be a little bit more aggressive. They don't really know how to be. Brandon Staley doesn't know how to be. He doesn't know what he wants to do. Before Brandon Staley, they would blow leads. They would find ways to lose games. They're always injured. I mean, the Chargers have this cloud over them, and they're not that well run of an organization either. Like, they've got ownership issues with the Spanos family who wants to be involved. They want to, make themselves feel like they're more important than they really are. There's a lot going on with the Chargers. You got Justin Herbert, but you got a lame-ass offensive coordinator. So you're not – how many times and I get it, they don't have a lot of receivers. After the injury to DeAndre Carter tonight, they were down to 3 receivers, and one of those guys' name is Michael Bandy. I get it. I understand why Justin Herbert isn't pushing it down the field. There is absolutely no speed on that team other than Palmer at receiver, and he's not a blazer by any stretch of the imagination, but he can run. And all of their guys are hurt. I get it. But before those guys were hurt, this was not a vertical passing game. Their offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi, doesn't like to throw the football down the field. This is the Saints offense with Drew Brees. Picture that. A lot of nickel and dime, dinking and dunking. They're not pushing it down the field. How many screens did we see tonight out of this offense? Justin Herbert might have the strongest arm in the league, and we saw 57 screens from this team. Mind you, let me say something else too. Understand that when leads like these are blown, think back to 28-3, okay, in the Super Bowl. Think back to 4 weeks ago when 33-0 was blown, okay? Think about those offenses. Think about what they are incapable of doing or don't do well, okay, or aren't interested in doing. In order to blow a lead of this magnitude, understand that you've got to have one of two, if not both, problems, okay? You're either physically incapable of running the football consistently, or you don't care to run the football consistently. It's one of the two. For the Chargers, it's both. It's both. Now, I think it's more of the fact that they just don't care to run the football, which is something I talked about in the lead up to this game. Like, Jacksonville has an issue stopping the run, but I said the Chargers aren't going to be able to exploit that because they don't run the football. How many times in a game that they led by 27 points, Justin Herbert had 43 passing attempts? How is that even possible? In a game that you were up 27-0, your quarterback ends the game with 43 passing attempts. It should not happen. But because this is a team that all season long failed to run the football, there were games where they didn't even attempt to run the football. When they do run it, it is not successful. They're not a good run team, but they don't try hard enough to become a good run team. That's how you lose games like this. One of the big knocks on Kyle Shanahan in that Super Bowl as the offensive coordinator for the Falcons was he didn't run it enough. They kept throwing the football. That allowed Brady and company to have the amount of time that they needed to send that game to overtime and ultimately win it. Obviously, you got to make some mistakes too, which is what the Chargers did tonight. You're not going to come back in a game like this without help from the opposition as well, okay? And so you got that in this game too. But at the end of the day, the Nick Bosa penalty, huge. Or excuse me, Joey Bosa penalty, massive. That's a 7-point swing, because I don't even know if they were going to get a field goal after the sack by Bryce Callahan. That's third and forever. I don't know if they get any more yards, and they were on the fringe of field goal range. You go from that backdrop of third and probably 19 on the fringe of field goal range in a 27-7 ball game to, oh shit, Joey's offsides. Now it's 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 5 or whatever it ended up being. They convert, go in, score a touchdown, and now it's 27-14. It's a totally different ball game. 27-10 versus 27-14 looks drastically different. You're still up 3 scores at that point. The very next possession, if you recall, they go down. It's a Gerald Everett catch that wasn't a catch. Jacksonville did not challenge, and they got a field goal out of that. If you're up 30-10, the game's over. But instead, it's 30-14. It's just a 2-score game. 2 touchdowns, 2-point conversions, and this thing is tied. Everything changes when you make mistakes. Your kicker goes down. You put together a nice drive. You bleed clock. You do everything. You should have put it in the end zone. You don't. But you do everything right on that drive. You get close, and you give your guy a 40-yard field goal. And here, all game long, they're talking Dicker the kicker, Dicker the kicker, Dicker the kicker. He's not missing. He's only missed from 50 yards one time this season. But other than that, he's made all his kicks going back to when he was a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. He's kicked 3 game winners this season. This guy is outstanding. He stabilized the kicking position for the Chargers. Oh, yeah? Oh, okay. All right. He didn't make it that damn time, did he? 40 yards, he misses. Dicker the kicker, dick them. Literally. And now you're fighting for your life. Instead of being up 33-20 with 4 minutes to go in the game, now all of a sudden it's 30-20, and they go down and they score a touchdown, and it's 30-28, And now you're fighting for your life. And of course, wouldn't you know it, instead of running the football, what do they try to do? They try to drop back and throw it, play action fake, right? Sack. So now this drive is pretty much in trouble. Then they try a screen, which is what they do. That didn't go anywhere. That didn't do anything. And next thing you know, they're punting the football right back to Jacksonville. And you knew they were going to find a way to get in the field goal range. When people say momentum isn't a real thing, just point to games like this. Once that thing starts snowballing downhill, you don't have a chance in hell of stopping it, man. Momentum is real. Uncle Mo is real. And this was another one of those situations. Between the kicking situation the Chargers have gone through over the last decade, the coaching situations that they've had over the last decade, heartbreaking, gut-wrenching losses that they've endured like this, it's got to be brutal being a Chargers fan. Absolutely brutal. I was about a month ago, I was telling Brandon Staley, pack your things. You're fired. Then they got hot. Started winning some games. Then they started getting some guys back. I looked up, Joey Bosa's coming back, and, Keenan Allen's back, and Mike Williams is back, and all of a sudden they got all these guys ready for the postseason run. And I'm like, well, look at that. Shit. All of a sudden, they got their left tackle, Rashawn Slater. He was slated to come back. No pun intended. All they had to do was win. He might have been playing next week in Kansas City. But in typical Brandon Staley fashion, he screws the pooch. So, as a wise man once said, let me say it again. You're fired. Hey, Brandon, man, go ahead and pack your stuff up, man. Matter of fact, don't even get on the team flight. Just find a way home. You done. That sucks. But I'll tell you this, that's going to be a very appealing job because Justin Herbert, if I'm Sean Payton, I'm like, to hell with Arizona, to hell with Denver. I want to go to LA to coach Justin Herbert. I can win me 2 or 3 more Super Bowls with this big, tall son of a bitch. So if I'm Sean Payton, the reason I haven't made a decision yet is because I was waiting to see what happened with the Chargers. They fire him. Now, again, it's Sean Payton, right? And if I'm Sean Payton and I'm going into a situation, I want a little bit of control. The Chargers aren't known for giving up control to coaches and, personnel, decision makers, and things of that nature. They want to have their hand in the decision-making pot, if you will. Too many damn kitchens in that Chargers organization. Too many cooks in that damn kitchen. But we'll see what they decide to do. I think this is going to be losses like this require massive change. I think Tom Telesco is potentially on the chopping block along with head coach Brandon Staley. People, you don't usually have survivors after a massacre like this. You blow a 27-point lead in a playoff game, usually nobody survives. We'll see what happens in the coming days with the Chargers, but that's an interesting location for a coach because there won't be a more appealing opportunity if this one should come available with Justin Herbert as quarterback. And I don't know what they're going to do with Keenan Allen. They may get rid of him, but Staley made a decision in a meaningless game in Week 18 to play his starters against Denver, and Mike Williams sustains a back injury and isn't able to play. You don't think that impacted this game? I've said this before. I'll say it again. Coaching matters. It matters. What a win for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've spent enough time talking about the losers of this game. How about we talk about the winner of this game in the Jacksonville Jaguars? What resiliency. And this is why you got to love young teams, because young teams don't know any better. I always say I love young boys come playoff time because they don't know any better. They young, dumb, and they hungry. They don't know that, hey, we down 27. We've turned it over 5 times. This shit is over. They don't know that the game's over. All they know is, all right, we're just going to come back next snap, and we're going to do it again, and we're going to see if we can't chip away at this thing and find a way to win. That's what young teams do. They've got short memory. All right. Veterans, teams that have been there, done that, that have seen blown leads, that know what it's like to lose playoff games, they start thinking, oh shit, here we go again. I've seen this before. 3 years ago, when I was a rookie, we blew a lead just like, so you start thinking about how this thing can unravel, right? When you're young, you don't have that memory. You don't have those memories. You're just like, all right, what shit, we just turned it over. What else could go wrong? You know, what's the worst can happen? We can't play any worse than we did in the first half. Let's just go out and play football and see what happens. And that's pretty much what Doug Peterson probably told the team. Look, guys, we can't play any worse than we did in the first half. I mean, we turned it over 5 times. We were down 27-0. Flush it. Let's just go out play in the second half to see what happens. Take it one play, one possession at a time. All right? Now let's see what happens. Trevor Lawrence started out with it was one for the history books in terms of making your first career postseason start and the ineptitude that he showed. And the reason I picked the Chargers to win this game was because I said, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have one of those games where we look at it and say, yeah. Remember that game in week 18 that they won to get in? I said, Trevor Lawrence wasn't really good in this game. They won the game in spite of Trevor Lawrence. And I said, I think we're going to get another one of those types of games, which is why I'm picking the Chargers to win. Well, we got one of those games, all right. At least in the first half we did. 4 INTs. Was the second one debatable because it should have been some kind of interference, whether you call illegal contact or pass interference or holding? Look, you make any decision you want. Pick one of the 3. It's one of those. What Asante Samuel did on that play is a flag, period. I don't care which one you flag him and call on him, but it's a flag. But they didn't call it. And I told you guys this. I said this going all the way back to the 2020 NFC Championship game with Green Bay and San Francisco, or Green Bay and Tampa Bay. I said those officials let them play in the game, and then when it was time for a big call to be made, they threw the flag. And you can't let teams play and be physical and then decide when it's time to throw a flag. If you're going to let them play, let them play. If you're not, then you're not. But at least the players know what kind of a game it's going to be by you setting the tone and then allowing them to adjust to the way you're calling it. I thought the officials let them play tonight. There was a lot of contact on both sides. They were letting them play. Get 3 interceptions, 2 picks on his first 2 possessions, 3 in his first 4, and he had 4 for the half. Then you had a punt doink off the helmet of one of their gunners, or their gunners, and it's a 5 turnovers, a 5-piece in the first half. Yet somehow, out of 5 turnovers, the Jags only had 20, or the Chargers only had 27 points, and that is a testament to their defense, because there's no way that game should have been that close with the 5 turnovers that they had. And as I mentioned, these weren't, Trevor Lawrence throwing a deep ball and the safety comes over and picks it, deep in your own territory. He picks it off as like a punt. These were, the first one, again, they scored a touchdown off of it, but that's inside the 15-yard line. There's another one that's probably the doink off the helmet's probably inside the 15 as well. The one of the Asante Samuel picks, the second one, he had a nice little return on it. That's probably around midfield. Like these are turnovers that are set up for them to have some great scoring opportunities. And all they were able to muster out of all of these turnovers were field goals, essentially. So you got to give credit to the Jaguars defense for keeping them in this game, because if the thing was 34, let's just think about it like this. If they gave up one more touchdown instead of a field goal, they lose this game. That's all they would have taken. but they buckled down and they got stops. And so you got to give that Jags defense some credit. They were huge and instrumental in this game turning around. They got stops in the second half. And so you got to give credit where credit is due. But really what this is about is Trevor Lawrence persevering, overcoming, and that's what you want to see. I've already said this about, quarterbacks, but young quarterbacks in particular. In the NFL, there's two things that you're really looking for from a young quarterback. One is consistency, right? Don't turn it over a bunch. Take care of the football. Make the right decisions. If you got to run it, run it. If you got to stay in the pocket, go through your progressions. If you got to check it down, if it's not there, don't force it because it's a shot play, so you're going to throw it down. No, just because you call a shot play doesn't mean you have to throw it 45 yards down the field. Maybe this requires you. They got the perfect play call defensively to take away the shot that you wanted to take. Maybe the right call here is for you to just check it down. Consistency. Because you can have a 4-touchdown, 1-interception game, but can you post those types of numbers on a weekly basis? Can you go 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, then the next week 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and the week after that 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and the week after that 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and the week after that 1 touchdown, no interception? Can you be consistent? Can you avoid the 1 touchdown, 3 interception game? And then the other thing that I'm looking for from a young quarterback is mental toughness. You're going to have games where you just don't have your fastball, where you just stink. How do you bounce back? You're going to make a boneheaded decision. You're not going to see that defender right outside your line of sight, but he's sitting there waiting for you to make a mistake. You throw it, you don't see him. As soon as it leaves your hands, this guy enters your view, and you're like, where the hell did he come from? Pick. How do you handle that mentally? Does that snowball into another mistake on the next possession? Do you just fall the hell apart? Do we watch you crumble right before our very eyes? Or do you find a way to pick yourself up off the turf, mentally, lock in, bite down, and find a way to get it done? And what Trevor Lawrence did in this game, if you don't take anything else away from this performance, is that this man has the mental toughness, the intestinal fortitude that you look for in a franchise quarterback. The man had 0 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions at one point in this game. His passer rating at one point was a 0.0. You can't play any worse. And he totally flipped the script in the second half and threw 4 touchdown passes and no interceptions. I'm usually looking for that. Maybe on a game-by-game basis. Okay, you just don't have it this week. You get them next week. The man flipped the script in a half in the same game. So if that's not mental toughness, I don't know what is. And to make it worse, it was at home. Because when you're on the road and you make those mistakes, you expect the opposition to get on you and the crowd to be juiced up. And it's a little tougher sometimes when you're at home because now your home fans are letting you have it. The good thing is in Jacksonville, half of the fan base doesn't know any better, right? They're just out there having a good, it's 42 degrees and they're still in the damn pool. And they're just out there to have a good time, right? So it was okay. If they would have tried that shit in a real football town, they would have been booed off of the field after the second pick. But the boos were very sparse. So he was allowed to process that, stay mentally engaged, and you saw what he was able to do. And to me, that's the kind of guy I want leading my team. That when shit gets tough, he's not going to run and he's not going to fold. It's fight or flight. And Trevor Lawrence showed you the ability to fight through adversity tonight. That's big boy football. Now, they're probably going to get their asses reamed next week at Kansas City. More likely than not. But what he showed tonight should make all Jacksonville Jaguars fans out there everywhere sleep really good tonight. Celebrate. You just came back from 27 points down in a playoff game with a quarterback making his first career playoff start who looked horrendous in the first half, probably set an NFL record for the most picks thrown in the first half of a playoff game or at a bare minimum, first half of your first playoff game. Either way, he probably set a record tonight that you don't want to set. But then he probably set a record that you do want to set, which is 4 touchdown passes in one half of football in your first playoff game and led them to a victory. What a comeback. This is a Jaguars team that has shown the ability to do this throughout the course of the season. They did it against Baltimore. They did it against Dallas. This is not the first time this was not unfamiliar territory to them, being down and rallying and coming from behind. So this is a battle-tested group. They don't quit, and they've got a quarterback that just refuses to give in, with a coach that gets it. I did not like the decision, and had they lost this game, I would have gone back to that first decision to not kick the field goal. Tony Dungy said, look, I'm a defensive coach. Don't listen to me, right? Because defensive coaches are, by nature, more conservative. But Tony Dungy said, don't listen to me. I'm a defensive coach, but I would have kicked the field goal. So would I. It's a playoff game. Your quarterback just threw a pick on his first possession. He got a little something going here. You're in field goal range. Send your kicker on the field, get some points, settle your team down, and settle into this football game. And it would have been one thing if it was 4th and 2, 4th and 3, maybe 4th and 4. I get it. It was 4th and 7. What are we doing right now? Why? He went for it anyway, and he threw a pick. And I said, that's a poor. Now, I like the aggressive nature, and I like what you're telling your team. We're here to win, but that's a poor use of being aggressive. It's unnecessary. That's excessive, is what we call that. Excessive use of force. You didn't need to do that. And it could have cost them. And had this game continued to go in the direction, I would have said that was the turning point in the game for me. Not getting points there and really having it snowball on your young quarterback. Instead of settling him down, getting some points, having him come off to the sideline, maybe look at the tablet, talk about some things that they can exploit. It's 7-3. Now you can settle into the ball game. He throws another pick, and we saw how that had a snowball effect on him. He went from that pick to another pick to another pick, and the score going to 27-0. So on that end, that was the play that I thought turned everything. In the second half, the play that I thought turned everything was the Bosa penalty. Because, again, they weren't getting a touchdown out of that drive without the Bosa penalty. So, wow, what a comeback. And to think, I wanted to know which court were y'all playing basketball at in the first half. Unbelievable. You know, somebody on socials was like, damn, we got 2 stinkers today. Hopefully tomorrow's better. And I agreed with them. I was like, yeah, we did. Hopefully we'll get some better action tomorrow. I told you guys on Thursday when I previewed these games, I said, this is either going to be a really good weekend or a really bad weekend of football. It's not going to be in between. Right now, we're off to a good start because I know the score, what the score says in the Seahawks game, but that was a good game. If you watched it, that was a good game for 3 1/3 quarters. And then the 49ers absolutely exploded. And we're going to get to the 49ers game here in a second. As a matter of fact, this is the perfect segue. Let's get there right now. That game was 17-16 at half, right? 49ers received the football to start the second half, and they marched right down. It was a beautiful, 12-play drive, whatever it was, marched it right down the field, got in the end zone, and took the lead for good at 23-17. But the turning point of that game, and all of these games, you know, to start off Wildcard Weekend, both of these games had a turning point. The turning point initially with the Jimmy Ward hit, and that is as boneheaded as it gets. Like, you know how I told you my dad, Boss, we call him Boss. You know, I told you Boss said, I'm fining his ass for that shit. That's dumb as hell. That don't make no damn sense. Told you my dad's from the islands. That's one of the times why I agree with him. Jimmy Ward, he's getting fined. That's a dumbass. That's dumbass football at its finest. There's 1 second remaining on the clock. I think it was 1 second left. There's no way that they're going to be able to kick a field goal from midfield. They're going to have to attempt a Hail Mary. You run. What are you running in after Geno Smith, who's sliding? What are you running in at full speed and lowering the shoulder on him and the boom on him? What is that going to do with 1 second remaining? What are you looking to accomplish? Like, this is the thing that drives me insane is, what were you thinking in that moment? You couldn't have been. It goes from 16 to 14 to 17, 16. I would have lost my shit if I was Kyle Shanahan. And I know he wasn't happy because he told the sideline reporter that he wasn't happy about that play. I would have lost it. But then, Geno Smith fumbling as the Seahawks, they weren't going to get a touchdown because it was third down and he got sacked. But if he holds on to that football, it's going to be more likely than not. They've got a really good kicker in Myers, Jason Myers. He's going to tack on 3, and this is going to be a 23-20 ball game. Oh, my God. and it's a totally different game. Instead, he fumbles the ball. Great play by Charles Omenihu to force the fumble. And then Bosa recovers it. The 49ers, they showed a statistic at that moment. 49ers had like 76 points during the course of the season off of turnovers. It was like the 4th most in the NFL. And of course, right on cue, they move it right down the field and they score another touchdown. And now it's 30-16. And you could see this thing slipping away from them. Then I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if I got this right or not, Geno Smith throws an interception. It's a great play by Lenore. Picks it off. And then Deebo Samuel has the touchdown. And here's what I love about the 49ers. Such a selfless team. We talk Deebo Samuel, rightfully so. You saw the impact that he can have. We talk George Kittle, rightfully so. You saw what he can do in this game as well. We talk about Christian McCaffrey. You saw what he can do, and rightfully so. But we really don't talk about the guy that actually led their team in receiving this year, and that's Brandon Ayuk. We don't talk much about him. But he led them in receiving again today. He made big play after big play. But the biggest play he made wasn't a catch. It was him blocking down the field for Deebo Samuel on that touchdown to really blow this thing open, blow the lid off of this game. That's why the 49ers, to me, are the best team in the NFC, and that's why they're going to go to the Super Bowl, if you ask me. Brock Purdy showed his ability to run today. We talked about he's got sneaky athleticism. This is why they wanted Trey Lance to be successful, because they needed Jimmy Garoppolo can't run. He has no value as a runner whatsoever. So there's no element of the quarterback when things break down hurting you with his legs. Enter in Trey Lance, which is why they drafted that young fella to come in here and change the game for them. Well, they haven't really been able to take advantage of that because he hasn't been healthy. Enter in Brock Purdy now with some wheels. All right. He, in a similar way that Geno Smith has wheels, but he's not a guy looking to run. Brock Purdy can extend plays. How many plays did he extend today? On some really risky shit, because he's on some Joe Montana rolling out, stopping by the sidelines. That's how you get decapitated. And he was this close. If Brandon Ayuk catches that football in the back corner of the end zone, that's a highlight reel that would have been on his highlight package for the remainder of his career. No matter what else he does, that would have been a play that, if they're talking about Brock Purdy, like next year when we go to training camp and the 49ers are having a quarterback battle, and Trey Lance is healthy, and they're going into camp, and they're having a legitimate battle between Trey Lance and Brock Purdy to see who starts, and they're talking about Brock Purdy while they're talking about him for 50 seconds, and they're showing this highlight reel of things he's done. That play is playing for 15 seconds because that's how long this play lasted. He rolled out to his left, he stopped, he avoided a guy, he ran all the way to his right, stopped, posted up, made a guy miss, threw a dart in the back of the end zone, and Brandon Ayuk dropped it. But that's what Brock Purdy brings to the table. And then there were a couple of times where things broke down. He took off and he ran and he hurt him. He adds a dimension to this offense that they did not have with Jimmy Garoppolo under center. Yeah, he missed some throws today. There were guys open. But Brock Purdy threw for 320 some odd yards, maybe 330 in the game today. He was outstanding. They ran it a little bit. I actually thought they were very aggressive. They came out throwing, which is the opposite of what we thought they were going to do. So they can throw it now. We know they can run it. And they've got weapons everywhere. 49ers are a dangerous team. And now that they're getting healthy up front, and they got Eric Armstead back, and they got Javon Kinlaw back, we already know what Bosa is capable of doing. You see what Charles Omenihu and some of these other guys are doing. This is a dangerous team, man. We know what the linebackers are. The one thing that I said you got to watch out for, and this, if you're a 49ers fan, this is the thing that should worry you, is that back end is not secure. And Travarius Ward, Mooney Ward as they call him, he got his ass cooked today by DK Metcalf. DK probably had about 140-something yards receiving today and a touchdown over the top. And if you're going to beat Philadelphia, you're going to have to deal with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and those guys who can get vertical, who can make plays down the field. So if you can't get to Jalen Hurts and they take some shots, you could be in some trouble on the back end. That's the only thing that concerns me about this team. Other than that, they're as rock solid as it gets. Their kicker has not missed a field goal, 24 attempts in his career, hasn't missed a kick. So they're ironclad across the board, essentially. It was a good game by their defense, even though Geno Smith really started out hot. At one point, he had one incompletion. I think he was 8 of 9, and I think he was like 10 of 11 before, he started to cool off a bit. But Geno started out very, very efficient. He wasn't turning over, which if they were going to sneak them, they were going to have to do it by playing a clean game and maybe creating one turnover of their own. Once they started turning it over, they didn't stand a chance. Another thing that I thought they would have in their favor in this game that they didn't, I thought the rain was going to be a factor because my wife was like, well, wouldn't that help San Francisco? I said, no, it wouldn't. When a team is clearly better than you, you want inclement weather because it's going to level the playing field. And then you take it a step further. Seattle plays in rainy conditions almost on a weekly basis. It rains almost every day in Seattle, Washington. I don't know that for a fact, but I know I watch a lot of Seattle Seahawks games where it's at least drizzling. They are used to it. As used to wet conditions as a team can be. But you didn't get that. It started out wet, and by the second quarter, the sun was out. I said, uh-oh, that's not good. But Seattle hung tough. This thing could have gotten ugly. It was 10-0. And then they put together a drive. And if they don't put together that drive, this game could have gotten out of hand very quickly. As a matter of fact, it was 13-0. And they put together a drive and made it 13-7. And then they got a stop. And then they hit DK over the top. And they took the lead 14-13. And just like that, they were ahead. So they fought admirably. But we knew this going in. Vegas knew this, which is why this was why the 49ers were a 10-point favorite. I did not think that the 49ers would win by 3 scores. I told you I thought they would win by 2 scores in this game. I did not think they would win by 3. I did not think they would win by 18 points. But I thought they would win by 2 scores. And this thing was 3 scores until they got the garbage time touchdown at the end. So dominant performance by San Francisco. The defense did what they're usually doing, which is forcing turnovers, getting stops, making you uncomfortable, being physical. And when the offense gets opportunities, they're depositing it into the end zone, which had been an issue for San Francisco at times this season in the red zone. Wasn't one today. As they and some of those touchdowns came from outside of the red zone. The Deebo Samuel touchdown in particular, outside the red zone. But they've been making some much bigger plays, since Brock Purdy has entered the lineup. They've become an explosive and dynamic offense, which they really weren't with Jimmy G under center. They've become almost a totally different offense now with a guy that offers a little bit of mobility, and I think he's empowered Kyle Shanahan to be a little bit more aggressive. So it's a different team, man. A very different team in San Francisco. Hell of a season for Seattle. If you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, look, you were playing with house money the entire season. They said this on the telecast at least 5 or 6 times, and they were spot on. This wasn't supposed to be a playoff season. This was supposed to be a rebuild year. No one was expecting anything from Seattle. They were supposed to be one of the bottom, feeders of the league in their division. And here they are playing in the playoff game with the guy that was a journeyman quarterback in Geno Smith that no one expected to do anything but be a placeholder for when Seattle, who traded away Russell Wilson, would be in a position potentially to draft a quarterback the next year. He was supposed to be it's similar to the Detroit Lions situation, right? Jared Goff is supposed to be a placeholder. At least that's how we viewed him, or I did, right? You weren't supposed to be doing anything in Detroit. He's just supposed to be a placeholder for you. And they came within a game essentially of making the postseason in Detroit. And Jared Goff is not just a placeholder. Geno Smith is not just a placeholder in Seattle. He's proven that this year. They're going to re-sign him in the offseason. He's not going anywhere. If they have to use the franchise tag on Geno Smith, they will. So they've established themselves. That's a young team. They'll be back. Pete Carroll, he did it again, continues to prove that he's defying father time. In the way that Tom Brady is defying father time as a player, Pete Carroll continues to do it as a coach. He continues to adjust and find a way to motivate, and this team overachieved this year. So you got nothing to be ashamed of if you're a Seahawks fan, but this was inevitable. When you drew the 49ers in the playoffs, and Pete Carroll even said, we're happy to be here, but unfortunately, we got the 49ers. That was a true statement. Unfortunately, you got the 49ers, and then you got your ass beat. And so 49ers take care of business, 41-23. McCaffrey was really good. Elijah Mitchell, good to see him back and in action. Deebo Samuel came back last week. He looks back. That was a little bit of a dirty play, with Jonathan Abram. He twisting his ankle. Remember, this man's just coming back from an ankle injury, and here he is getting his ankle twisted. That's a little dirty there, but it tempers flared a bit, as it should have. But cooler heads prevailed, and the 49ers went ahead and took care of business, defeating a family member in the postseason for the 3rd straight time. Kyle Shanahan is now 8-0 against the NFC West, dating all the way back to the NFC Championship game last year when he beat the Rams. Swept the division this year, beat the Rams in the playoffs last year, beat the Seahawks in the playoffs this year. So that's how you do it. You want to win and want to win big. Take care of home. Take care of business with family members. Shanahan is doing that at a very, very high clip. And it has this 49ers team right now in prime position to be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. Now, Eagles will have something to say about that. The winner of Bucks Cowboys may have something to say with that. We'll see. That's also pending, obviously, what the Giants do and the Vikings do. We'll see what happens. Tomorrow will go a long way in determining what will happen. But this 49ers team looks extremely dangerous. They look like everything we thought they would look like coming into the postseason. with a 10-game winning streak. Now, I will say this. I have to say this. I would be remiss if I didn't say this. They made a statement that, if I'm a 49ers fan, frightens me a bit. They said the last 4 teams that have had a 10-plus game win streak heading into the playoffs have all been eliminated in the divisional round. I don't want to hear that if I'm the San Francisco 49ers. Just a little food for thought. You do the dishes. So, with that said, excuse me. I think I said they beat the Rams. They did not beat the Rams last year in the playoffs. He's won 7 games in a row against divisional opponents. The last loss, rather, was in the championship game to the Rams. They should have beaten the Rams last year if Jaquaski Tart could catch. 7 in a row, I think it is. All 6 games this year, and obviously winning in Wildcard Weekend. So it's been good eating in the NFC West for the San Francisco 49ers under Kyle Shanahan this season. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section. And both home teams take care of business, one in convincing fashion, the other squeaking by after erasing a 27-point deficit. All right. Let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. And if you're out there, want to have your comment read, super chats are the way to jump straight to the front of the line and ensure that your comment gets read. We've got roughly about 30 minutes left on the show, so we'll get through all of the super chats, every single one of them, and any hashtags that we can get to in that amount of time. You want to have your comment read, use the hashtag LouieTLive. I'll get to as many of those as we can before we exit stage left. So let's jump into the comment section and see what you guys have to say. Video channel kicks off the night. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, welcome to LA, Sean Payton. I don't think you're wrong there. I literally said at the top of the show, if I'm Sean Payton, the reason I haven't committed to a team yet is because I wanted to see what the outcome of this Chargers season was going to be and what decision they were going to make. Now, again, understand that Sean Payton is in a position of power where he can decide where he wants to go, and he can even influence some decision-making within the organization. He's got that kind of clout. His name comes with that kind of power. And so you want to go somewhere where ownership is like, hey, Sean, you can do, like the Denver Broncos have an ownership group that'll tell Sean Payton, bro, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. You want to hire your own GM? Well, they got a GM. I don't think they didn't fire George Patton, but he's going to come in and he's going to have a little bit of say-so if he wants it. I don't know what kind of power he's looking for. But if he wants to go in there and have a little bit of say-so, he could do that in Denver. Because they didn't hire, the ownership group didn't hire GM George Patton, right? So theoretically, it would be their hire. And if Sean Payton says, hey, I need to bring in my own guy as a GM, if things don't work out with George Patton that first year, and Sean Payton goes to ownership and says, hey, I need my own guy in here. I don't trust this Patton guy. They're okay, get rid of his ass. He's gone. We'll get rid of him. You get your guy lined up, get him on the phone, and we'll fly him out here and we'll get something done. So that could theoretically happen. But if you're Sean Payton and you've got a choice of 3 quarterbacks to be coaching, should this Chargers, and again, we're speaking as if this is already taking place. The assumption is, Brandon Staley, you're fired. That's the assumption. He gone. But what if he's not? We don't know. But just going with that hypothetical that he is, if you're Sean Payton and you got the choice of 3 quarterbacks to coach, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, or Justin Herbert, which one are you choosing? Now, again, ownership goes into that decision-making process, okay? Bill Parcells will tell you quick, what good is it if I can cook if you're not going to allow me to pick the groceries, right? Why go somewhere where you're going to have one of the ownership members all in your ear telling you what you should or shouldn't do, trying to pick players and wanting to be more involved than he should be? That's what the Chargers organization is with the Spanos family. So I'm not sure that just Justin Herbert alone is the lone deciding factor as to why you would choose the Chargers. You also have to consider what's going on in that front office, what's going on over this entire organization. But if we're just strictly talking about quarterbacks, there's nothing to decide. I'm taking the job with Justin Herbert. Door Gunner, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Chargers are the Cowboys of the AFC. Yeah, that's a good one, except the Cowboys make it to the playoffs more frequently than the Chargers do. But yes, it's very similar in that regard. Almost always have a good team and find a way to choke. Staley might be gone after this. Sean Payton to the Chargers, very, very realistic to ask that question. It's a very good question. It's a very realistic possibility that could transpire. Again, I wouldn't discount, Sean Payton saying, I don't really want to work with that ownership group. But if we're just talking about quarterbacks, like this is why Sean Payton left, because he couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel in New Orleans. He knew that they weren't going to be a very good team, and he didn't really want to be a part of a rebuild. So he left. This is why he left, so that he could, kind of sit down, recharge the battery, but also get into a situation that was set up for him to be successful. You're not going to win in this league without a quarterback. Sean Payton knows that firsthand. He's seen that up close and personal. And he saw what life was like with Drew Brees, and then he saw what life was like without Drew Brees, and he was like, I need one of those types of dudes. I'm not trying to do this without somebody like that. You get Justin Herbert, and he's going to have the ability to be dominating the league for the next decade plus, which is what I'm pretty sure he's looking to do. So we'll see what happens. I think that's a good comp for the Chargers, is the Cowboys in the NFC. Let's see. B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Joe Lombardi and Scott Turner doing the Spider-Man meme. Yeah, I think I feel bad for Chargers fans because they've been complaining about Joe Lombardi all season long. And the bad part was they made the playoffs. So had they won tonight, Joe Lombardi more likely than not wasn't going to be fired. And so they were going to have to endure him for yet another season. But after this showing tonight, I think everybody is, nothing is out of bounds. Everybody is responsible for this, and everybody could be gone. So it's just, you're just playing the wait and see game, with the Chargers. But the assumption is if Brandon Staley's fired, then everybody else is fired, because all of those guys are there because of Brandon Staley. So if he gets canned, his staff is gone. A new coach is going to come in, and he's going to bring in his own staff. And so that's going to take place. So Joe Lombardi stinks, as an offensive coordinator. And again, he might be right for another team. Like if you've got a lesser armed quarterback and you're trying to, protect that quarterback, don't want to throw it down the field, then Joe Lombardi's the man for the job. You got Justin Herbert, man. This guy can sling it 70 yards in the air with the flick of a wrist. And you got this guy throwing a bunch of dink and dunkers, and everything's underneath. How many times did he throw it down the field tonight? How many times did Justin Herbert just rear back and let it rip down the field? He doesn't do it very often. And I get it. They don't have a great collection of receivers, and a lot of their guys are banged up, and there was no Mike Williams, who's one of the few guys he does like to attempt it down the field to. But it's just not a really good situation. And Joe Lombardi is a huge part of the reason why. So, yeah, those two are pointing at each other. And you know what? They're also going to be pointing at each other. Oh, you don't have a job? Neither do I. They're both going to be pointing as fired offensive coordinators. Vincent Coe, Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, Lou, what a season for my Seahawks. But we did play against Brock Purdy, or did we play against prime Tom Brady? I'm confused. Hey, let's not get carried away now. Okay, let's not get carried away. Brock Purdy looks damn good. I'm still waiting for that one game where he stinks it up. Maybe it won't come, and maybe he is the second coming of Tom Brady. I mean, this has been a remarkable start to his career. It's been a remarkable story. And the 49ers have quite the dilemma on their hands. It's a great position to be in because, like I said on the podcast on Thursday, they don't have to make a decision right away. They don't have to trade one of these guys. They're both young. They're both on rookie contracts. They got a fifth-year option that they can invoke on Trey Lance. They've got Brock Purdy for the next 3 years. So essentially, they've got each of their quarterbacks for at least 3 more seasons if they so choose. So they don't have to make a decision right now. But if they decide Purdy's the guy, they can trade Trey Lance. If they decide Trey Lance is the guy and Brock Purdy's hanging around and Lance, finally gets that opportunity, ceases that opportunity, kills it, they're right back in the playoffs and they're a dangerous team, then they've got Brock Purdy that they can move. Like, they're in a great position. The only thing that can lessen the value that they're sitting on right now is if they were to play Trey Lance and he stinks it up. And now his value is diminished. But if they just stick with Brock Purdy, someone's going to be intrigued by Trey Lance. If I'm Tennessee, I'm saying, okay, what do you want for Trey Lance? Like, he'd be the perfect guy. Like, he's a much better Malik Willis, essentially. Way better Malik Willis. He'd be perfect for the Titans offense. There are a number of teams around the league that would look at a guy like Trey Lance and say, hey, I'd take that young fella off your hands, see what I could do with him. So they're in a great position, are the 49ers. But we can't crown this kid quite yet. I mean, it's been outstanding what he's done to this point of his career. 6 starts now, 6-0, including a playoff victory. I mean, he's killing it each and every single week. Yeah, he looks really good. But I'm not crowning him yet. If you want to crown his ass, then crown him. But I'm not going to do it yet. Not yet. Luck, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Luck, thank you for being a member of the MOBB writes. T-Law said, guess what, Herbert? You know how it went. Yeah. You know exactly how it went. Exactly. We all know all too well. The Cubo, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Duval! I give credit to Doug Peterson making adjustments at halftime and Trevor bouncing back. Hashtag, it was always the Jags. Hashtag, I don't get to eat Ovaltine. You don't need to. Celebrate. That's what you get to do. Celebrate. Yeah, man. I don't even know if there were real adjustments to be made in the second half other than, hey, let's just stop turning it over. Let's stop giving the football away. Let's just settle down. Let's play Jaguars football. Trevor, throw to the guys in teal uniforms, not white. You got it? All right, let's all bring it in. 1, 2, 3, break. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really hard. I didn't see them doing anything. The one adjustment was they went a little bit of tempo, right? But that wasn't really the deciding factor in the second half. They just executed better. And then Uncle Mo jumped on their side, and the Chargers are in that mindset of, and I told you, when you've experienced heartbreak, and and that's a young Chargers team, so not everybody there has experienced what, some of the older players like Keenan Allen has, but when you've experienced heartbreak and you expect the worst to happen, it's going to happen. And enough of those guys were there last year when they blew it against the Raiders. Enough of those guys have been there for these Chiefs games where they've been ahead and should have won and find a way to lose. So you start thinking about, man, are they going to really come back on us? And they did. You got to give Doug Peterson some credit. Absolutely. You got to give that Jacksonville Jaguars team as a whole credit because they could have folded. You're down 27-0. Nothing's going right. You've turned it over 5 times. You're getting steamrolled at home. You're getting dog walked at the crib. You could have easily said, we'll get them next year. Wasn't our night. But they didn't do that. They fought. And you just completed the 3rd largest comeback in NFL history. We saw number 1 roughly 3 to 4 weeks ago with the Vikings against the Colts. We know that the Oilers and Bills was the largest at one point. That was, superseded by the Vikings comeback. But this is the 2nd largest comeback in playoff history, still behind the Bills and the Titans or Oilers, and the 3rd largest in NFL history now. It's a hell of an accomplishment for such a young team. Congratulations, man. You're going to the divisional round. This is the one thing I got to say about Jacksonville. Jacksonville didn't go to the playoffs very often. But when they do, boy, do they make that shit count. The last time they were in the playoffs was 2017. They went all the way to the AFC Championship and were within 7 minutes of going to the Super Bowl. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, J.L. Smooth. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB rights. Lou, what a late game. Turned it off at 27-0 to turn it back on at 30-28. I've been saying the Jags are dangerous, but the 49ers game, man, that changed with that ineligible man downfield call. Huge turning point. That was a big call. The Seahawks would have had 1st and goal inside the 10-yard line after that play, and they would have been in a position to score a touchdown. Instead, Geno Smith and company are backed up, and then the next play is the sack, forced fumble. And so you could look at it that way. Absolutely. I didn't think it was a BS call. Those guys were down the field. Now, they usually give you that extra yard, of leeway, but they had no business being that far down the field. Let's keep it a buck. They were 2 yards down the field. It was 2 of them. All right. It wasn't nitpicky, sure, but it was within the parameters of where you could throw the flag, and they did. That's a judgment call. They could have let it slide, absolutely. But you could look at it that way and say, yeah, that play changed everything because it forced that 3rd down that ultimately forced the fumble. Or you could just say, Geno, just don't fumble on the sack and kick the field goal. I choose to go with the latter. You go with the former and say, hey, that penalty totally check. Because in my mind, without that penalty, it's 1st and goal. They still could have settled for a field goal. It's not like that wiped away a touchdown. So we don't know what would have happened. Geno Smith could have fumbled on the next play. Even if that penalty doesn't exist. Just don't fumble. Just get some points there, and it's still a different game. I think the fumble is more so what changed the game than that penalty. But the penalty definitely, because you don't know. They could have scored a touchdown on the next play, for all we know. So to your point, that was a big play too. I just choose to focus on the turnover because that took away a scoring opportunity. Starface, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, thoughts on the Sam Howell reports today. It was like music to my ears. Now, again, there are reports. Until somebody from the organization or one of the beat writers, like a JP Finley or a John Keim or a Nikki Javala or somebody like that can confirm it, it's just a report. And it's just something that's thrown out there. And we don't know if that's the direction they're going to go in or not. It could be just, again, we've officially entered lying season for us. Okay. It's officially, once the season's over and we get into the off season, it's officially lying season. Believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man, Louie T. You know what this is. We do this every year. So while on one hand, I want to rejoice because that's what I want them to do. I've already made it abundantly clear how I want the offseason to go. And as far as decision making with the quarterbacks and all that, how I want it to go. But I need action to represent that, to back that up. That report was refreshing. And I hope that's what they're telling prospective offensive coordinators, because if that is, in fact, what they're telling them, then they are going to roll with Sam Howell, and that's what I want them to do. So that would be great news. But I'm not going to get too excited quite yet. Going to see what happens, what transpires, and then, once Derek Carr and Jimmy Garoppolo and all the dust settles and the smoke clears and they're on other teams, then I'll feel good. Then I'll be like, hell yeah. Let the Sam Howell era begin. So I was happy about them. But I'm not going to go overboard because I still need to see that they're not going to do something stupid first. The Cubone. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, I remember seeing you tweet out something about basketball during the game. Never count out the Jets. Yes, I did. Yes, I did tweet out something about basketball. They came back to beat the Raiders, Ravens, Cowboys, Titans, and now the Chargers. Hashtag it was always the Jags. They've been a very resilient team all season long, to your point. I absolutely did count them out of this game. I realized, I think, right around 27-7 with the Jags driving to make it 27-14, even though I tweeted out right before Lawrence got sacked, but then had that wiped away by the Bosa penalty, which I thought was the turning point in the game. I tweeted that out, that, hey, if there's ever been a team that could blow this lead, it'd be Brandon Staley and the Chargers. But that was not giving enough credit to the Jaguars for what they've done this season and being a resilient team. That was more so putting it on the Chargers and saying they're a choke artist of a team and organization and that they're going to find a way to blow it, instead of giving Jacksonville the credit and saying, no, they're going to take this away from the Chargers. So this is who they've been, to your point, all season long, and they did it again. So congratulations to them. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, JL Smooth, 105.3, writes, DeMar at one Bills drive today. Man, God is good. I saw the photograph of him and linebacker. Matt Milano. I think Milano was the one who posted it on his IG. And, just the fact that he was released the other day, was at the facility today, could be at the game tomorrow for all we know. We don't really know what's going, but just the fact that he's been released from the hospital, man, to your point, God is good, man. I mean, the scene just, a little bit over a week and a half ago or whatever it was on a Monday night was frightening. We're rolling up on 2 weeks from that fateful Monday night. And for him to have made the progress that he's made from where we were, man, I tell you, man, God is definitely good. God is definitely good. And I said this on the podcast as well, but Peyton Hillis is also, recovering and trending in the right direction. And so, man, God is good. Indeed, he is. Red Wing 01. Well said, John Livingston. Well said. Red Wing 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, gotta hand it to Purdy. He might be in a great situation, but he ain't just along for the ride. He's balling. Absolutely. That's the difference right now with Brock Purdy, is in situations where you don't trust your young quarterback, you protect him. You run the football. I mean, as a Washington fan, we watched an offensive coordinator and a team, a coaching staff who didn't believe in the quarterback position as a whole. We watched them week after week try and protect the quarterback position. Run safe plays and not want to be overly aggressive and, too conservative, and it really hurt them in certain spots. That's not what the 49ers are doing. They're throwing caution to the wind. They're taking this kid and they're putting him right in the fire, and he's showing that he's made of metal. That fire isn't hot enough to melt him, and the 49ers have, look, you got to give credit to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, because they could have easily have not done anything. Now, they knew they needed to do something because they planned on trading Jimmy G. They did not plan on him being on the roster this year. So Brock Purdy was supposed to be their new insurance policy. Okay. Before, it was Nick Mullins and it was CJ Beathard, aka CJ Beathard. Those were those late round draft pick, Nick Mullins undrafted insurance policies. If anything happens to my starter, at least I've got these guys to fall back on. That's what Brock Purdy was supposed to be for the 49ers. And then Jimmy doesn't get traded and they hold on to him. And thank God that they did, because Trey Lance gets hurt in week 3. And you're thinking to yourself, man, at least they got Jimmy G. Then Jimmy G goes down. I don't remember what week it was. Had to be every bit of week 12 or 13. Wait, he was 5-0 to end the regular season. So it's probably like week 12 that he goes down, and Brock Purdy finishes out the season 13, 14, 15, 16. So it's probably week 13 he goes down, and Purdy comes in 14, finishes up 13 against the Dolphins, and then goes on a stretch where 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 wins all 5 of those games, heads into the playoffs, wins his first start. And so he was supposed to be an insurance policy, an afterthought. But they drafted this kid in the 7th round to develop him, to groom him, to be prepared in the event of something like this happening. They just didn't expect it to be in his rookie season. So they had the foresight to know that they needed to go out and get another guy. They could have easily gone the route that most NFL teams go, which is go get the Chase Daniel backup quarterback, somebody you're comfortable with that's been in the league for 25 years to back up your quarterback. They could have done that. They could have gone the Josh Johnson route. But they didn't. They went and got a rookie, and they wanted to groom him and develop him, and look what it's brought them. Look at the returns on investment here. Got to give them credit, man. And Purdy, like you said, he's not just a passenger. He's driving this damn thing. And driving the hell out of it well. He's whipping this shit. Chevy Kitchen, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, what up, LT? What's up, Chevy Kitchen? Says, you motivated me to start my own YouTube channel. Congratulations. He says, posted a couple of videos. Hopefully we can hop on a video together. YouTube at kitchen_island. So y'all heard the man. Go sub up, support his channel, see what he's got going on out there. If you like his content, sub up and show some love. Congratulations on starting the channel. It's not hard to start a channel. What is hard is to continue to churn out content when essentially no one's watching, or you feel like you're doing this in vain. Because when you start a channel, unless you've got 4,000 or 5,000 people that are going to sub to you right away, YouTube isn't kind to those who just are starting out. I've had many people come to me asking me about, how do I start a channel? What do I need to do? There's no magic potion here. All right. There's no substitute for hard work and perseverance. You're going to have, maybe a year or two of not a lot of views. And if you can withstand that, continue to churn out good content, they'll eventually find you and watch, and more people will watch. And then YouTube will jump into the fray, and they'll start suggesting your channel to those who are looking for similar content. But you got to hang in there. It's not going to be easy. But if you can do that, you'll have a chance. Congratulations on starting, but that's only the beginning. Dig. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. Dig. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Dig. Greatly appreciate you. I'll read both of these comments here from you. I want the Giants to lose, and I hope they do. We need company on the couch. So it's not going to be a slam dunk. I think the Giants are going to have a chance. I picked the Vikings to win 23-17. And I think they're going to have a chance. Like, nobody will be shocked if the Giants win today. Nobody will be shocked. Dig says, I could not figure out how to send my super chat, shaking my head. You're not the only one to do that. It's a common mistake. I got you. I'll hold you down. You super chatted. I'll make sure that I read your super chats. So I knock these comments out for you, dude. I always caution people just to be on the safe side. Type in your comment first before you go through the super chat process. That's always the safest way. Type in your comment first. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JL Smooth, writes, Staley has to be gone tomorrow. Way too much talent on that team to lose like that. Plus Mike Williams getting injured in a meaningless game. Yikes. The talent thing is an issue, but you got to give Staley credit for keeping this team together with all the injuries that were sustained throughout the course of this season. I mean, their offensive line was decimated by injuries. They've been without Mike Williams a couple of times this season. They were without Keenan Allen for at least the first 7 to 10 games of the season. Justin Herbert sustained a serious injury to his ribs in week 2, right? That really probably affected him for the next 5 to 7 weeks before he was actually really healthy again. They went out and signed JAX to this massive deal. Man might have played all of 3 or 4 games before missing the rest of the season. Joey Bosa was out for most of the year. They just got him back not too long ago. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, they've had so many injuries on their team that it's not even funny. And yet they were in this position. But to your point, playing your starters in a meaningless game last week for as long as he did, it's not a crime to play your starters in a meaningless game if you want to get them some reps and some work. The Buccaneers played Tom Brady for a possession last week against the Falcons and then got him and the starters out of there. They didn't need that game. They already had clinched the 4 seed. There was no purpose behind them being out there. You just want to get your guys lathered up and then get them out of there. He could have done the same thing against the Denver Broncos last week. Instead, he left them in there for essentially a half of football and got Mike Williams injured. I think they were in for probably like 3/4 of that game. And Mike Williams got injured. And it cost them. It hurt them in this game. It obviously didn't help. So he had to persevere and overcome some obstacles. But the end of the story is he just hasn't gotten it done at a high enough clip as Chargers head coach. And this, to me, is the culmination of all of the failures that he's had. This is the exclamation point that I think ultimately gets him fired. And I do agree with you. I think he will be gone probably tomorrow, maybe more like Monday. You don't usually see coaches get fired on a Sunday when there's still more football to be played. Not that the Chargers care. We'll see what happens. He could be fired tomorrow. I think it'll be more like Monday or Tuesday. He gets canned, but we'll see what happens. Red Wings 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Dig wanted to say he hopes New York loses. Also, you missed my first super chat. It was the first of the stream, but whatever. Imagine Jacksonville when Ridley arrives. Oh, I did miss that one. I forgot all about that. They did trade for Calvin Ridley. That's going to make them even scarier on offense. I forgot all about that. Like totally blanked on the fact that they were getting Calvin Ridley. I had already read the 2 comments from Dig already. What a gesture by you to super chat, to relay a super chat for somebody else. Also, you wanted to make sure that you let me know that I missed your first one, and I definitely did miss that one because I didn't see that one. But I did not even think about that. That is a great reminder. That's a good call, Red Wings, that they traded for Calvin Ridley, knowing he was suspended this year, but they're going to get him back next year. And you add him to what they have, they may lose Evan Ingram. He's going to probably, you see his stock is going through the roof. He's going to make, and this is why I wanted to take a flyer out on Evan Ingram this year. He made the right decision to go to Jacksonville with a real quarterback situation, and he's going to be rewarded with a nice payday next year. You know, he signed a 1-year prove-it deal, and he proved it. And so he's going to get paid. And so you get Ridley in there with, I don't know if Marvin Jones will be back next week or next year, but you put him out there with Christian Kirk and Zay Jones. That's a formidable trio of receivers. If you bring back Marvin Jones, I don't know if they will or not. That's 4 guys that can hurt you, and they could probably draft another guy. You know, that's a scary proposition if Ridley comes back and he's healthy and he's dialed in. I didn't even think about that. Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, takes mask off of Chargers. It's the Falcons, but why? Meddlesome kids. You know, nothing like the old Scooby-Doo unmasking of a team, only to find out that they were masquerading, only to hide the fact that they were another team. All right. The Chargers, this did have Atlanta Falcons choke job written all over it. They've created an assortment of ways to blow games, have the Falcons over the years, no matter who the coach has been. It really started with Dan Quinn, and it hasn't, stopped under Arthur Smith. But this was right down the Chargers' alley. This is essentially, the NFL catching the Chargers red-handed, and they go to pull the mask off, and they say, the San Diego Chargers? Wait a minute, that can't be right. The Los Angeles Chargers? Whatever. You're under arrest. This is what the Chargers do. This is their move. You pull off one mask, and it's just the San Diego Chargers. You're like, well, take that one off, and it's still the LA Chargers. It's the Chargers. It's what they do. Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, as much as I don't even want the Eagles to sniff the Super Bowl, the idea of them losing to Doug Peterson in the Super Bowl, priceless. I don't even want them there. I agree with you. I don't even want them to sniff that. This is, if it were up to me, I would have it go down in this fashion. The Vikings beat the Giants, so the Giants are eliminated, right? Vikings would then go to the 49ers next week. Winner of Cowboys and Bucks go straight to Philadelphia. So it really doesn't matter which one it is. I would prefer Dallas to lose to Tampa Bay, right? So that the Cowboys are eliminated, and now the couch is looking a lot fuller than it did going into the postseason. Giants on one side, Cowboys on the other side, and then Brady goes straight to Philadelphia and does those boys, and then you get Brock Purdy against Tom Brady. So who a lot of people think Brock Purdy is, which is the next Tom Brady against the real Tom Brady. We've seen this game already, and that's what your NFC Championship game is. That would be the perfect scenario for all Washington fans, because in that particular scenario, there isn't a guarantee of a NFC East team playing in the NFC Championship game. If Dallas beats Tampa Bay or the Giants beat the Vikings, if the Giants beat the Vikings, the Eagles are going to the NFC Championship game, because the Eagles aren't going to lose to the Giants. They're just not. So by virtue of that, you're assured of the Eagles playing in the NFC Championship game. In the premise where the Vikings beat the Giants, and whether the Cowboys win or not, you're making sure that you don't end up with two teams from the NFC East in the NFC Championship game, because then one will be assured of being in the Super Bowl. I would prefer the Cowboys to lose so that they're already out. And then the Eagles don't even have to play in the NFC Championship game. They could lose to Tampa Bay in the divisional round. But I just don't want either one of those teams from the division, Dallas or Philadelphia, because the Giants aren't good enough to make it to the Super Bowl. They're good enough to pull the upset. But no matter who they play, which they would have to play Philadelphia, they're not going to beat the Eagles. But if they beat the Eagles, they're not going to beat the 49ers. Like, there's no way they can make it. But the Cowboys could make it to the Super Bowl. The Eagles are good enough to make it to the Super Bowl. I don't want either one of them there. So I don't want to even talk about priceless, them losing to Doug Peterson and all that and how it could be priceless, because anything could happen in the Super Bowl. And I don't want them to get there and then win. I don't even want that possibility on the table. Let them bastards go home where they belong and let all be right with the world. So, yeah. Let me just say that again. Anyway, I kind of figured that would happen, but Super Chats took over, ate up the rest of our time block. So we are out of here. We'll be back tomorrow again. Same time. 3 games tomorrow, however. So we'll have a lot more to discuss, and I may extend the show out a little bit longer because of the 3 games that we'll be talking about. And hopefully, and maybe it just depends on how quickly the games go. We may have a block of time to discuss the first 2 games before the nightcap. We'll see. I'll decide. I'll probably just do it all in one show like I did tonight. But either way, we got 3 games tomorrow. I don't think 2 of the 3 are going to be competitive. You got a third stringer in Skylar Thompson going against the Bills. That's going to be a massacre. I mean, that's going to be a bloodbath. The Dolphins, if DeMar Hamlin shows up at the Bills Stadium in Orchard Park, it's going to be a madhouse. They are going to destroy them by 40. Okay, they better pray that if I'm the Bills, I don't want to use that one. Like, that's a get out of jail free card. I don't even want to use that until the divisional round. Okay, let him show up for that game, not this one. Anyway, whether he shows up or not, they're drubbing the Dolphins. The second game is the close game. That's the only one that has a chance to be close on Sunday. And then the nightcap with the Ravens and the Bengals, it's family business. The Ravens aren't going to just lie down, but there's a chance that they're going to have to start the rookie from Oregon. He stinks. And I mean, I don't love Tyler Huntley. And if he's got to start, that's not all that much better. No Lamar Jackson means no chance for the Ravens. So tomorrow, I'm not looking forward to the football tomorrow. I'm not going to lie to you. But I am looking forward to the Giants and the Vikings. That should be a good game. So anyway, I digress. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening, as will I. We will come back and do this all over again tomorrow. A full slate of games tomorrow, 3, starting at 1, ending at 8 with the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Ravens. And hopefully we get 2 out of the 3. That's the best case scenario. We know the Bills. I can assure you, if nothing else, if you don't remember anything else I said, Bills-Dolphins will be a blowout. And it may not be like 30-37-10, but they're going to win that game comfortably, even if it's only 2 scores. The Dolphins will never be in a position to threaten the Bills in that game tomorrow. So that one isn't going to be close. The only hope is that the last 2 games of the afternoon and evening are competitive and give us something to talk about. Anyway, I digress. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll see you guys next time. I thank you guys for joining me. You know what it is. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man, Louie T. Until next time, God bless and good night.